Hello and welcome to a little bookish corner of the internet. My name's Harriet. I hope you're having a lovely day. Today I'm going to talk through the books that I read in February. So as I'm filming this, we've got 2 days until the end. So I will be including the book that I'm currently reading because I feel like I probably will have finished it. And if I have, then I'll let you know when that book comes up, what I rated it. Yeah, anyway, enough babbling, let's get started. So first off, in my previous wrap up I mentioned that I was reading The Name of the Wind but I hadn't quite finished it. I did in fact finish it, and it was a bit of a tricky one for me because I did enjoy it. There were just certain elements that annoyed me or that I didn't love. For example, the fact that the author, Patrick Rothfuss, would constantly reference the name of the book. So The Name of the Wind would literally be written in the book like 50 times and quite close together as well. That seemed to annoy me quite a lot. But I did really enjoy the characters. I do wish that there were some more kind of strong female leads. There weren't that many in there. But I was expecting things to be a lot worse because I'd heard really bad things about the way that the author wrote women. But as I mentioned in previous videos, it was nowhere near as bad as Murakami. So I feel like anything in comparison to that author's works feels very mild, and I didn't really have a problem with it. If you don't know the story about The Name of the Wind, we're basically following this young orphan who decides that he wants to learn how to harness his magic, and it's following him as he's growing up, the things that he has to deal with. It's definitely like a proper story that's told to you from his perspective, so you have to keep that in mind when you are reading it. But I thought it was really fun, just above average, but not my favourite book ever. However, I did have a great time with it. I just wish that it was a little bit shorter. So it ended up being a 4-star rating for me. I also don't think I will be continuing with this series. I would rather treat this book as a standalone. I just don't think I have the mental capacity to be reading that many pages in such a big series. The next book that I read is actually more like a short story, and that was I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harlan Ellison. I have read this previously. My partner said that I should read it. It's about 2 years ago actually, so before I had any of my YouTube page and my Instagram page, just when I was reading regularly, and I really enjoyed it then, but I did reread it. This is a short story following this little group of people that are basically what is left of humanity because an AI has taken them into its subconscious or consciousness and is messing about with them, but it doesn't want to kill them, it just wants to like play about and get back at humanity essentially, so that they feel trapped like the AI did. This is a short story that I really love and I will definitely go back to, so personally for me it's a 5-star rating. I know it's hard to rate a short story that highly, but when it affects you so greatly in so little words, then you know it is a really good one. And I really like the author's writing style. It's very grim, very dark, and filled with more horror than you would expect. The next book that I read was A Man Called Ove by Frederick Backman. This was lent to me very kindly by someone at work. I didn't really know a lot about it, only that we are following Ove, who's the main character, and he's kind of like this grumpy old man. He doesn't trust people. He's honestly a little bit racist and homophobic, so keep that in mind. This book, I did like it, but there were certain points where I was hoping that it would be over. I know that sounds really bad, but that's just my personal experience. I didn't love it. There weren't really any standout characters for me, and the only reason why I gave it the rating that I did, which I'll tell you in a minute, is because of the last couple of chapters. It deals very much with mortality and what happens when you leave people behind after you die, how they deal with it. And I think that part of the book was written really well, but I didn't particularly like Ove as a character. I know you're not really supposed to, but I wasn't even rooting for him to become a better person. I just didn't really care about him, which sounds awful, but that is just how I felt. In terms of the writing, it was very easy to follow. I wouldn't say it's too intensely detailed or anything like that, it's just very easy to read. It's definitely a cozy read, book for you to kind of sit down if you're in a bit of a reading slump. Maybe this would be a good one to pick up because it's so easy to get through. However, it just didn't really do too much for me. The only reason why it got a 3.5 star is because of those last chapters. They really did sit with me and made me quite emotional. Didn't quite make me cry, so I can't give it a higher rating than that. But yeah, those last chapters were written really well and felt very realistic, which I did like. However, I don't know if I'll be reading anything else by this author. And then things went downhill from here. No, it wasn't actually that bad, but I did read a book that I was really excited to read, and again, it just didn't do a lot for me. I feel like I was going through a little bit of kind of lacking any emotion. I don't know what was going on with me. The previous months, I had been so intense with my emotions, everything had been so like heightened, and now it's just kind of gone. It's coming back a little bit, and I'm glad to not be crying all the time, but I do wish that this book would have hit me a bit harder because I feel like it could have, but it just didn't. And that is Our Souls at Night by Kent Haruf. I think this is the author's final book, which does make me appreciate it a bit more because we are following these two elderly characters, and they were married to people previously, but those people have disappeared from their lives, and now they're kind of connecting together and they're talking about their lives, reflecting on the people that they've met and the experiences that they've had while they are gradually getting older and dealing with the fact that they are going to die some point very soon. So it's definitely quite a hard-hitting book, quite a hard-hitting topic. However, for me, it just didn't do enough. I really wanted it to be super raw and gripping and really upsetting and emotional, and it just wasn't that for me. But again, I enjoyed reading it. It's not like I disliked the book at all. There wasn't really anything that I did dislike in this one. It just wasn't strong enough for me. So again, it gets the average rating of 3 stars. Another book that I was really excited for, but it just didn't do it for me, and I'm so sorry because I know this book is so hyped and so loved, but it is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I don't know what it is about me and this author's writing, but I've tried Circe by the same writer, and I don't know where the emotions are, but they're just not there for me. And when I read Circe, that was before all this crazy stuff was going on with my mind. So I do think it's the way that the author perhaps writes the stories and writes the characters. Like, we don't get enough time with the characters together. You get more in The Song of Achilles than you do in Circe. Circe's very rushed, it feels. And this one you do get to spend more time with the characters. But there's also so much other stuff going on that it isn't just about the emotional side. You get this other part of the story, which I personally didn't really care about too much because I already kind of knew the story. If you didn't, we are following Patroclus, I'm not sure how you say his name, and Achilles and their relationship with each other, how they meet, and the bonds that they form with each other. So it is a very sweet and very sad story. It just didn't feel emotional enough for me. However, I do respect the fact that people love this book, and I understand why they love the book. It just wasn't it for me, so it ended up being a 3.5 star rating. This has kind of put me off reading any more Greek mythology. I think I'm just going to give it a rest for a little bit. I have got Ariadne. I can't remember the author's name, is it Jennifer Saint? I've got that on my Kindle because it was in the sale, so I thought I'd pick it up, but I think it's going to be a little while before I start that. So after having so many kind of average books and I wasn't really feeling it, I thought, you know what, I'm going to listen to an audiobook of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. This is a book I've loved for years. I've loved it ever since I was a kid, when it was read to me, or when I used to listen to those little tapes that you'd flip them over, and the CDs of the audiobooks. So it's something I really love, and I really love all of the films that I've watched surrounding this story. It's very whimsical. Obviously it is intended for children, but I do think there are some very funny moments in there that even as an adult you can appreciate, and it's just so much fun. I really had a great time with it. So obviously it's a 5-star rating. It's one of my favourite books. So it was a reread, but sometimes when you get to that point where you're not enjoying anything, you just want to go to something that you know for sure that you're going to enjoy because you've enjoyed it last time. So that's why I read that one, and that's also why I finished reading the next one, which was The Tombs of Atlan by Ursula Le Guin. This is the second book in the Ursula series. Of course I loved it. I love all the characters in this series. If you didn't know, it is a fantasy series following this wizard named Ged, whose username is Sparrowhawk. And in this universe, similar to In the Name of the Wind actually, you know the true name of things, and that's how you control them if you have the power to do so. And it takes a lot of energy to do that. It can exhaust you quite a lot. And in the second book, we meet a new character. I'm not really going to tell you the plot because I feel like you should read the series from start to end and not know too much about it. But if you are looking for a very easy reading fantasy series that's quite short, if you're a fan of Harry Potter and books like that, then I definitely recommend checking out the Earthsea Cycle. And I don't know if I mentioned, but that was obviously a 5-star read. As was the next book, which I think is the first time I've read it. I'm not sure. I've definitely seen the stop motion animation for it because I rewatched it on YouTube because it's there for free. But that is The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. This is such a cute story. Again, I think it was intended for children, but we're following all of these woodland creatures and they are sentient, I guess is what you would say. So they speak to each other like we do, and there are actually humans involved in the story as well. And we're just following all the crazy antics that they get up to. It's really funny. Some of the characters in here are very morally grey, and it's cool to follow them and see what they get up to and the very bad decisions that they make. But I had the best time with it. Like I say, it was a 5-star rating. I just think it was very funny, and I'll definitely be rereading it. It's on my Kindle, but I think I will be buying a physical copy of it, which is exciting. And then things went very quickly downhill with Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. I had such high hopes for this non-fiction. It's all about humanity and humankind and where we've kind of come from, where we started from, and up until where we are now. Unfortunately with this book, I had to kind of skim read the last 100 pages because I just couldn't do it anymore. It started off so strong, and it was definitely to do with facts and figures and dates and giving us all this information which is super interesting in the history of us. But towards like the last third of the book, it's more about concepts and ideas and the author's thoughts on those ideas, and that's just not what I went into the book expecting. It's not what I personally like to read. I know some people will definitely enjoy it, but I just found it incredibly boring. And I know that's really harsh to say because it is that author's thoughts and opinions, and that's fine. I'm not saying I disagree with anything that they were saying, just that I didn't want to read it. So yeah, that ended up being a 2.5 star rating for me. It probably would have been lower had the first half not been so interesting. But after that terrible book, I read a really fantastic book. Again, this is one that was on loan from someone at work, so I'm very grateful that they gave this to me to read. And that is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I was excited to try this author's writing because I was recommended their poetry when I was first trying to get into poetry, which I honestly still haven't tried yet, but I do intend to at some point. Yeah, this is the first book that I've read by this author, and it was fantastic. It was gripping, it was fast-paced, it was emotional, it was really dark and really gruesome, and honestly really disheartening as well. But we're following this dystopian society where women are literally just used as birthing machines essentially, and there's kind of different layers in the class system and places that they can go, but it's definitely a totalitarian state. And we're following the main character and how she's dealing with this, and her remembering her past, which is slowly fading away from her because she believes they might be drugging her. That is never made clear. I know this is part of a series, so I don't know if you'll get more answers as you go along, but I thought it was brilliant. I really enjoy books like this that really make you think and make you question society. So it ended up being a 5-star rating and one of my favourite books that I read. And even though the author has kind of delved into the poetry side of things, I didn't find the book to be too fluffy, so that was nice. And then after that, I went on to another fantastic book, which is the second in a series by Michelle Harrison, and that was A Sprinkle of Sorcery. This is the second book in the 4-book series called the Pinch of Magic series. I don't know how many books there are going to be actually because the 4th one was just released, but we're following these 3 sisters and the kind of magical antics that they get up to. It's not your typical magic, so they don't use like wands or anything. It's a children's story, but it's to do with the magic that are in different objects, and there are witches and things like that, and mythical creatures, and it's just fantastic. It's so much fun. Again, this is one of those series that I feel like if you like Harry Potter, you'll really enjoy this one. It's definitely intended for kids, but adults can definitely read it. I think there's some really good morals and really good connections in the story. It's definitely based on family and trust and keeping hope and things like that. But this was a great book, another 5-star read. So even though I had kind of a shitty month in terms of reading, I had some really amazing gems in there as well, and this was one of them. Can you stop crawling all over everything, please, Mr. Spider? Go on. The next book that I read unfortunately wasn't as good, but I didn't hate it, and that is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I know this is a classic and it's quite a short story, which I wasn't expecting. It's been on my shelf for a little while and I thought, you know what, I'll just pick it up and give it a go. This is kind of, I don't know how I'd describe it, a thriller, but not really. It's like a romance, but it has got paranormal themes in there, which is very interesting. So we're following the Phantom, or the ghost of the Opera House, which I believe is in Paris, and he has fallen in love with one of the singers that is there. And it's following their story and what they do, and how he kind of deals with the fact that he is disfigured, how he tries to hide that from the girl that he's in love with because he's so scared of showing his true self to her because he was treated really badly in the past. Now, I don't feel like this book had enough in it. I just wanted it to be a bit longer, but I did enjoy the bits that I read. I think the characters were all very well established in such a short amount of time. But like I say, I just wish there was more, backstory, a bit more history, and I just feel like I didn't get enough out of it. However, I did enjoy it, so it ended up being kind of average for me, which is why I gave it a 3-star rating. And then the last book that I am currently reading, I will let you know here if I have read it, and I'll let you know my rating as well, but that is Transcendent Kingdom by Yaa Gyasi. It's my first time trying this author's works. I do have that other book, which is called Homegoing, I believe. This one is following a young woman called Gifty, and it's basically talking about her job, which is to do with neuroscience on mice, and how that is connected to the fact that her brother died from an overdose and was an addict, so was suffering from drug addiction, and also to do with her mum's depression. So it's very family orientated, very character based, also has that science side of things as well. I'm currently really enjoying it. I think I've got about 100 pages from the day that I'm filming this, so I'm hoping by the time this video goes up, I probably will have finished it, but we're not sure. Like I say, I'll let you know if I have read it and what the rating is for it. So far I'm having a really good time. It's obviously dealing with some quite dark topics, so do keep that in mind. But I think it's written really well and it's very gripping as well. So yeah, this month I actually read 12 books, which is crazy. I think I only put like 5 or 6 on my TBR because I didn't think I was going to be able to do it, but I did manage to read quite a lot. Also, if I have finished Transcendent Kingdom, that means that I've read 13, which is mad. I think that might be the most books that I've read in a month. But either way, it means that I'm well on track for my 100 books in a year, which would be amazing if I can hit that. I think I'm 3 or 4 books ahead of schedule at the moment. But I had some really great experiences with the books this month. Obviously, some of them didn't quite hit the mark for me, but some of them really blew me out of the water, and so many 5 stars, which is really great. Definitely let me know down below if you've read any of these books and what you thought. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.